All right, let's get right into it. A brand new report just dropped, and you got to hear who wrote it. The very people whose entire job is to calculate catastrophic risk for a living. And wow, their conclusions frame our climate situation in a completely new and honestly a pretty alarming way.
So the report kicks things off with this really stark comparison from Sir David King. He says, look, this isn't some abstract thing about melting icebergs far away. This is about systemic risk. The exact same kind of risk that brought the entire global economy to its knees back in 2008.
I mean, you remember back then, right? We had all these high-level officials, people like the U.S. Fed Chair Ben Bernanke, saying on the record that the housing market was fine, it wouldn't derail the economy, no major banks were going to fail. They couldn't see how all the risks were connected. Well, this report is arguing that we're in a very similar moment of collective blindness right now. Only this time, the asset at risk, it's the entire planet.
So, you might be asking, who exactly is making this wild claim? Well, it's actuaries. And if you don't know, these are these super highly trained professionals who analyze risk for the insurance industry. I mean, their entire job is to price the unpriceable, to see disaster coming. So when they say we've totally miscalculated the odds and we're heading for trouble, yeah, it's probably a good idea to pay attention.
The core idea they're working with here is something they call planetary solvency. And you can think of it just like a company's balance sheet. A solvent planet has healthy assets, things like a stable climate, clean water, good soil, and those assets are what support our global economy and, well, all of us.
And the flip side of that, of course, is planetary insolvency. And yeah, it is exactly what it sounds like, bankruptcy. But we're not talking about a financial collapse here. We're talking about the actual life support systems of the planet starting to fail. The report paints a grim picture. Mass migration, a massive hit to the global economy. And, well, even worse.
So, using the kinds of risk management tools they use every day, the authors put together this dashboard to show where we're at. And you don't need to be an actuary to get the main point here. We are already way, way outside of what anyone would call a safe risk appetite. We're heading straight for the red zone, the catastrophic zone. Okay, so how did we even get here? Why are these risk experts, of all people, saying the danger is so much closer than what a lot of the mainstream models have been telling us? Well, it turns out there's a chance those models missed something huge.
This is really the heart of the matter. The report argues that for decades, we've been running this massive, totally unintentional geoengineering project in the background, and we've only just started to switch it off. It's this wild paradox called aerosol cooling. So for decades, the very same pollution from burning fossil fuels, the stuff that's terrible for our lungs, has also been creating this kind of reflective shield up in the atmosphere. These tiny particles acted like a giant accidental sunshade, bouncing sunlight back into space. And get this, it was masking about 0.5 degree Celsius of warming that we should have been feeling all along.
But here's the crazy part. As we've started cleaning up our air, which is a great thing, right? Especially with new rules for shipping fuels, that sunshade is vanishing. The report has a pretty dramatic name for this, a termination shock. Basically, the mask is coming off, and we are now, for the first time, seeing the true, raw, underlying rate of warming. And you can see it plain as day in the data. For a long time, the rate of warming was chugging along at about 0.18 degrees Celsius per decade. But just in the last 10 years, it has jumped up, accelerated significantly. So this tells us we're not on some nice, steady, straight line anymore. We're on a curve, and that curve is getting steeper fast. And this chart here, showing the Earth's energy imbalance, really shows you why. The best way to think about this is like the planet's fever. It's the gap between the energy coming in from the sun and the heat going back out. And that gap, that imbalance, has doubled just this century. We are trapping heat way, way faster than most of the models ever predicted. So, to sum it up, the report brings together 3 really powerful lines of evidence. You've got the satellite data showing that crazy energy imbalance. You've got records from Earth's ancient past that show how the climate reacted to CO2 before. And you've got the accelerated warming that's happening right here, right now. All 3 of them point to the exact same conclusion. Our climate is probably way more sensitive to greenhouse gases than we thought. And that leads to the report's really stark bottom line. This isn't some far-off problem for our grandkids in the year 2100 anymore. Based on this new understanding, the authors are saying we are now on a path to blow past the dangerous 2-degree threshold before 2050, unless we take immediate emergency level action. Okay, but here's the thing. The report doesn't just drop this massive warning and walk away. It actually lays out a response plan, and it's modeled on the exact same kind of recovery plan a company would use to pull itself back from the brink of bankruptcy. So the plan has 5 main parts. First up, a huge mindset shift. We have to become intentional managers of the planet. Second, go for the quick wins, like slashing methane emissions and stopping deforestation right now. Third, we need to supercharge the transition to clean energy. Fourth, let's work with nature, restore and protect forests and oceans. And finally, number 5, we've got to seriously research some emergency brakes, ways to rapidly cool the planet to buy us some. And here's a really crucial point they make. This isn't all about cost and sacrifice. Not at all. They argue that taking these actions will actually be, and I'm quoting here, overwhelmingly positive economically. It's a strategy to dodge these huge economic shocks while actually unlocking a ton of long-term growth. And they're not just saying that. They've got the receipts to prove it. Just look at this data from 2023. Investment in clean tech is already a huge driver of economic growth. In China, it was responsible for 40% of all GDP growth last year. This isn't some pie-in-the-sky future dream. It is happening right now. So when you put this all together, it really brings us to this fundamental turning point. It's a choice about what our role on this planet is even going to be. For most of human history, our impact on the planet was just an accident, a side effect of building our world. Well, this report argues that era is officially over. Like it or not, we are now in the driver's seat of the entire planet, and the only choice we have left is whether we're going to drive with our eyes on the road, intentionally managing where we're going, or if we're just going to keep driving blindfolded. And, despite how severe this warning is, this is maybe the report's most important message. The future isn't written in stone. We still have agency here. The data is definitely grim, but it is not our destiny. That's the entire point of a risk assessment, right? To see the danger coming clearly enough that you still have time to change course. The authors use this phrase. They call it a break glass moment, just like the financial crisis. It's one of those moments that demands we take emergency actions that honestly would have seemed completely unimaginable just a little while ago, before the crisis became this clear. And that really leaves us with the final big question. Think about it. If a company's auditors came in and said, you're facing imminent bankruptcy, the board of directors wouldn't schedule a meeting for next quarter. They would take emergency action that day. So the report asks a very simple question. Now that we have this warning, what emergency actions are we going to take right now?